Let's bring in Peter Baker, MSNBC political analyst and chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, and MSNBC international affairs analyst and former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Ambassador, thank you for being here in studio. You get the first question. Anything that Vaughn reported there, does that stand out to you as unique, interesting? What comes to mind?
Well, I think it's a good thing that they're talking about security guarantees. That was not talked about with Putin. President Trump for a long time has not talked about that. I think that format of Zelensky with the European leaders, I think that's a good one. So it's not just Zelensky and Trump. We've known what's happened with that from time to time. So that's good news. But the devil's in the details. When Ivan kept saying NATO-like security guarantees, why not just NATO security guarantees? So this notion that it's going to be something like NATO but less than NATO, if I were the Ukrainians, that would make me nervous. They had one of those, by the way, in 1994. It was called the Budapest Memorandum, and it meant nothing. It didn't stop Putin from invading in 2014. It didn't stop him from launching his full-scale invasion in 2022. So good news, they're talking about something that's a necessary part of a long-term, credible end of this war. But the bad news is that it's something NATO light, when in my view, it should be NATO. To me, that's the way to real credible security guarantee is membership in NATO.
So, Peter, you are still there in Alaska. You're wrapping up the reporting. Beyond learning President Zelensky is expected in D.C. on Monday, what more have we learned about the actual meeting between Trump and Putin? And anything verifiable or behind the scenes to report from either side?
Well, look, what we've learned, especially in the hours this morning, is that the president gave up his demand for a ceasefire. Remember, what we're talking about now, when we talk about security guarantees and so forth, this meeting with Zelensky, this is for a broader peace agreement that would be more enduring down the road. But that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to take a long time. You heard President Putin say, I was in the room with him yesterday, he said we have to address the root causes. When President Putin uses the phrase root causes, what he means by that is NATO retreating back to its 1997 borders before its expansion. What it means is Kyiv giving up a lot of its military. What it means is Kyiv giving up a lot of its territory. These are not things that are going to happen overnight. What President Trump came into Alaska saying he wanted was an immediate ceasefire to halt the killing right away. And then he left Alaska, not only without that ceasefire, but giving up on it. A complete reversal in just a few hours of time, the kind of which we don't normally see in international diplomacy. And that means that what Vladimir Putin got out of this summit meeting is not only the nice photo op on the red carpet and in the presidential limousine. What he got out of it was essentially a free pass to continue the war for an indefinite amount of time without the severe consequences that Trump said he would impose if there wasn't a ceasefire.
Ambassador, I want to add, Axios is reporting a difficult phone call post-summit with Zelensky. How do you interpret these developments, and are you hearing anything from Ukraine?
Well, I think Peter's absolutely right that Putin won the framing of the negotiations and what comes next. And Trump just gave up really quickly, shockingly so. It kind of reminds me of Helsinki when he just accepted Putin's point of view about what happened in the 2016 elections. And that creates problems for Zelensky because Zelensky, the list of things that Peter just listed, that's not going to happen, not anytime soon. I would say not anytime ever. The idea that Ukraine, President Zelensky, is going to unilaterally leave positions in Donbass that his soldiers are in right now, that sounds absurd to me. Putin has been trying to conquer Donbass since 2014 and has failed. And now he's trying to get Trump to help him to do that. And so the idea that they're going to negotiate over that the Ukrainians are going to leave territory that they're currently in exchange for a ceasefire, that just seems completely untenable to me and makes it suggests to me that this negotiation is going to be long and tragically probably not very successful.
Peter, Trump spoke to Fox News after the Putin meeting, and the Times headline reads, after summit, Trump heaps praise on Putin in Fox News interview. What struck you from that interview? Anything concerning or illuminating?
Well, what Trump said in that interview when he praised Putin was really that Putin praised him. That's what he was focused on. He brought up with Hannity, without being asked, how happy he was to hear Vladimir Putin say in their public appearance that he agreed with Trump's longstanding assertion that the invasion of Ukraine, the full-fledged invasion of Ukraine in 2022, wouldn't have happened had Trump still been president. That was just music to Trump's ears. He also said, whether this is actually true or not, we don't know because it happened behind closed doors, but he said that Putin agreed with him that the election in 2020 had been rigged. He agreed with him on all of these grievances that Trump has articulated over the years. In other words, Putin, who is a former KGB officer who used to be in charge of managing, foreign assets, was playing to put Trump's own sensibilities. And that's by Trump's own description in that interview.
So can I ask you, Peter, why no questions after the meeting? I mean, is it because maybe Putin didn't want to face tough questions from the U.S. media and so Trump complied?
That's a really good question because it was advertised as a news conference, and that was not a news conference. What it was two statements meant, offered seriatim, one after the other. In fact, what was really odd about it was that President Trump, who was the host of this meeting, let President Putin go first. That's not the protocol, as Mike McFaul, of course, as an ambassador to Russia, knows quite well. And by allowing Putin to be the first to speak, he got to frame, the meetings that they had just had. And they took no questions. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if the Russians said they didn't want to take questions, but it was a tell that President Trump didn't take questions, because even if he didn't take questions with Putin at his side, it would normally be the kind of thing he might do where he would talk to the reporters on the plane or talk to reporters separately or whatever. The fact that he didn't, when he usually likes to talk to reporters and success and victory, suggests that perhaps he wasn't comfortable doing that. It's really not clear. The only person he did talk to was Sean Hannity, who, of course, is supportive of him. And I think that was an interesting moment.
So, Michael, getting back to the no ceasefire, let's work toward a peace agreement aspect of this whole deal. It seems to be a gift to Putin, right? There's no immediate further sanctions. It lets Putin keep on with his military assault of Ukraine.
Yes.
So in that measurement, the meeting is a failure, right? I mean, it's not a 10 out of 10, as the president claimed. How do you see it?
Well, it's definitely not, in my view, a 10 out of 10, both in the symbolism and the substance. So the symbolism for me was just outrageous. This is an indicted war criminal that came to the United States of America. This is the guy that for the first time since Hitler and Stalin launched a full-scale invasion of a European country, complete with occupation and annexation. This is a guy that has kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children. This is a guy who bombs every night, terrorizes civilians in Ukraine, and kills them every single night. That is not a person that you should roll out the red carpet to. And the fact that Trump just treats him as his friend is a real setback for America's reputation in the world as the leader of the free world that has implications way beyond Ukraine. But then secondly, on the substance, I've organized meetings like this.
Yep.
I worked for President Obama. I've organized summits many times. And summits are about deliverables. What do we get out of the meeting? And usually the Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, people like me do the homework first. And then at the meeting, there's something tangible that makes the American people better off. This had no deliverables. Zero deliverables in terms of that. And the ones that even Trump himself set, ceasefire, as Peter mentioned, one was just, when he kept lowering the bar, he's like, well, I hope I can announce a new meeting, a trilateral meeting. He couldn't even do that. And so it begs the question, what was the purpose of the meeting? And what do we, the American people, get out of this meeting? I would say right now we got nothing.
You've been in this room with Putin. What is it about Putin and the people around him? Is it that he is so mesmerizing or transfixing on the topics? Or in this case, relative to Donald Trump, is it that he is so susceptible to flattery? What is it that makes the outcome that we get?
So I think it's both. Putin is a formidable interlocutor. He comes very prepared for these meetings. He knows what his goals are, and he's never in a hurry to get to those goals. This is a big difference that I always noticed in negotiating with Russians. We Americans were kind of in a hurry. We have a problem. We're engineers. We got to get it done. He doesn't think that way. He thinks time is on his side. And by the way, he may be right about that.
Yeah.
But the second piece is that when I look at the way President Trump thinks about these meetings, he thinks the meeting itself is the end. And so it's a good meeting. It's always a good meeting. It's never a bad meeting. We had a good meeting, 10 out of 10. That's the deliverable for him. Whereas for Putin, he doesn't see it that way. He doesn't need the meeting to go well. He needs Trump to be his ally to help rehabilitate him as a leader on the great power stage. And that's exactly what happened. And he understands that to do that, you flatter Trump. So all this nonsense about 2020 and mail-in ballots, how absurd is that to be talking about at a summit about trying to end the war in Ukraine? Yet he rolled that out because he knows that that's what Trump wants to hear. He rolls out this absurd claim that I wouldn't have invaded had you been president. And yet again,
where's the proof on that?
That's a talking point. There's no proof.
None.
By the way, there's no proof about the mail-in ballots not working either.
By the way, right.
but that he knows those are talking points that Trump uses. And sure enough, in his meeting with Hannity, those are the things he's repeating.